Most men and women who set out to manifest their desires fail not because the law does not work, but because they do not understand its nature. They treat imagination as a passing fancy, a fleeting thought to be entertained for a moment and then discarded. They do not realize that the imagination, once assumed and felt as real, becomes the seed of their world. 99 out of 100 abandon the seed before it can take root, for they look outside and see no sign of change, and in that moment of doubt, they uproot the very plant they hoped to grow. The secret lies not in the outer world, but in the inner state. When you imagine, you must enter into the reality of the wish fulfilled so deeply that you lose yourself in it. It must feel natural, as though it had always been so. But most will say the words while their hearts deny them. They rehearse the scene without dwelling in it. They repeat affirmations while still clinging to the evidence of the senses. They ask, "When will it happen?" not knowing that such a question betrays their lack of faith. Imagination is not a game to be played casually. It is the creative power of God Himself within you. To doubt it is to deny your own divinity. You cannot serve two masters. You cannot confess lack and then hope for abundance. You cannot persist in fear and expect love. The failure is not in the law, it never fails. The failure is in the application. Men fall short because they refuse to persist in the unseen when everything within them cries out that nothing has changed. The shocking answer is this: they do not feel it. They think about their desires, they speak of their desires, but they do not enter the state of the wish fulfilled and dwell there until it becomes real within them. Feeling is the secret, and until the feeling of fulfillment possesses you, nothing will appear. To imagine without feeling is to plant without water. The seed will wither before it lives. So I tell you, if you would not fail, you must dare to live in the end. Assume it, clothe yourself in it, walk as though it were already yours. Let the world deny it, let reason ridicule it, let the senses contradict it. It does not matter. Remain faithful to the unseen, for the unseen is eternal, and the seen is but a shadow. 99 will turn away, but the one who persists, who feels it real though no evidence appears, he shall know the promise fulfilled. For imagination creates reality, and the world will always conform to the state in which you dwell. When a man begins the journey of manifesting his desire, he does so with fire in his heart. He imagines what could be, he thrills for a moment at the thought that life may bend to his inner command. Yet soon the enthusiasm wanes, for the senses speak louder than imagination, and he looks about him for proof. Finding none, he says, "It has not worked." And in that very moment he uproots the seed he himself has planted. This is why so many fail. They abandon their creation before it has had time to take root, forgetting that the harvest does not come the instant the seed touches the soil. Imagination is the soil of the soul. Whatever is conceived within it must, in its appointed hour, break forth into the world of form. But the seed must be allowed to rest unseen, undisturbed in the darkness of faith. When you imagine the wish fulfilled, you have sown the seed of that fulfillment. Yet men, impatient and doubtful, keep digging into the soil to see if it has sprouted. Every time they question, every time they look outward for evidence, they disturb the process, and in their unbelief, they kill what might have been. Understand this: the outer world is not the cause. It is only the shadow of the inner state. To demand signs and proofs from the shadow is folly. The shadow has no life of its own. It only reflects the substance from which it springs. When you turn to the outer world and say, "Show me the result before I believe," you betray your ignorance of the law. For belief does not follow sight. Sight follows belief. The senses will one day bear witness, but their witness is late. It comes only after the imagination has been sustained faithfully within. So I tell you, the reason 99 fail is not because the law chooses favorites, nor because they lack worthiness, but because they cannot endure the silence of the unseen. They demand immediacy. They demand that he invisible bow instantly to their command, and when the invisible delays, they lose faith. Yet what is faith if not persistence in the absence of evidence? To have faith is to know that the seed already contains the harvest, though the field still looks barren. You are called to a greater vision than the world teaches. The world says, wait until you see. The law of imagination says, believe until you see. The world insists on proof before conviction. The law insists on conviction before proof. And here lies the stumbling block of the many. They cannot hold to the invisible long enough to see it made visible. Do not abandon your creation. When you imagine, you have already begun the process of manifestation. The seed is alive within you. Though you cannot see its growth, it grows nonetheless. Trust the unseen process. Just as a farmer does not tear open the soil to see if the seed has sprouted, neither should you tear open your imagination to demand evidence. Leave it in the care of faith and let it unfold in its own hour. If you would be among the few who succeed, you must discipline yourself to remain steadfast in the assumption of the wish fulfilled. When doubt whispers, silence it with the remembrance that imagination is the creative power of God Himself in you. When impatience arises, answer it with the knowing that every seed requires time and darkness before it breaks into the light. Do not let appearances move you. Do not let the silence of the senses persuade you that nothing is happening. For beneath the surface, in the unseen depths, the miracle is already unfolding. This is the great difference between the one who fails and the one who triumphs. The failure looks outward and abandons the unseen. The triumphant one abides within the vision, though the outer world mocks and denies it. Remain faithful, and in due season the world will bow to the reality you held within. For imagination once assumed and felt must externalize. It is law, it cannot fail. Imagination is the very womb of creation. All that you see around you, every building, every invention, every work of art, every movement of civilization, was once only a vision held in the secret chambers of the mind. Before the world knew it, someone imagined it. The house you live in was first a plan in an architect's mind. The clothes you wear were once only a design in thought. Nothing exists in the outer world that was not first born in the inner. To ignore this truth is to live blindly, mistaking shadows for causes and missing the substance that casts them. When you imagine with feeling, you plant a seed in this unseen soil. It is small, invisible, and perhaps forgotten by the conscious mind, but the subconscious holds it, nourishes it, and prepares it for its hour. What is required of you is not endless labor in the outer world, but faithful tending of the inner image. Yet man, not trusting the invisible, rushes to manipulate the external world, believing that his efforts alone produce the harvest. He exhausts himself in toil while ignoring the power that silently shapes his reality. Imagination, when assumed and felt as true, is not a dream but a fact in a higher realm. This fact, though unseen, is more real than the transitory appearances around you. For the appearances shift and pass away, but the state imagined and accepted is eternal until you change it. To say it is only imagination is to confess ignorance of the law. What you call only imagination is God's creative power in you, waiting to be claimed. But here lies the difficulty for the many. They treat imagination lightly. They imagine for a moment, then contradict themselves with contrary thoughts. They say, I am wealthy in imagination, and then return to their old confession, I am poor. They live in two worlds, divided, unstable, and as Scripture says, a double-minded man is unstable in all his ways. The seed cannot grow in soil that is constantly being overturned. Understand that imagination is not idle fantasy. It is the workshop of reality. The outer world is clay, but imagination is the mold. If you persist in a mold, the clay must conform. The seed is not optional, it is the cause. The shadow cannot choose to reflect otherwise than the object that casts it. In the same way, the world cannot reflect otherwise than the state you consistently imagine and feel. Do you want to know why so few succeed? Because they do not dwell in imagination long enough for it to solidify into fact. They play with it for a moment and then run back to the evidence of their senses. They ask, but where is it? Why has it not come? And in asking, they reveal they have not truly believed. For to believe is to rest in the assumption that it already is. Faith is not straining. Faith is rest. Faith does not ask when. It knows it already exists in the unseen and waits patiently for its appointed time. So I tell you, imagination is not to be treated as a passing thought. It is the seed of reality itself. Guard it, nourish it, and above all, feel it real. For feeling gives life to the image. Without feeling, it is but a lifeless sketch. With feeling, it becomes a living reality within you, pressing to externalize. Do not be deceived by the silence of the senses. Though nothing appears outwardly, the unseen work is already complete. You are simply awaiting the unveiling. Remain faithful to this truth. Your imagination is God in action. The world is but its echo. What you dare to assume and persist in will without fail appear. The seed may take days, weeks, or months, but the harvest is sure. For imagination creates reality, and all that you behold is nothing more than the outpicturing of states once imagined. Thought without feeling is like a seed without life, a shell without substance. Men imagine countless things throughout the day, yet only a few of those imaginations ever bear fruit, for they lack the vital element, feeling. It is not enough to say the words of the desire, nor to picture it faintly in the mind's eye. Until you feel its reality, until you inwardly consent to its truth, it remains a barren thought, lifeless and powerless to manifest. Feeling is the secret, for feeling clothes the idea in the garment of reality and gives it substance in the unseen. When you dwell upon a desire with feeling, you enter into its state. You do not stand outside of it, hoping to one day possess it. You step within, breathe its atmosphere, and walk as though it were already yours. This act of inward appropriation is the key that 99 ignore. They repeat affirmations, they visualize lightly, but their hearts remain unmoved. Their senses whisper, "It is not here," and they agree with the senses rather than with the imagination. In this way, they cancel their own work. The law does not respond to words alone, but to the vibration of your inner acceptance. If you say, "I am wealthy yet feel poor," you remain in poverty. If you say, "I am loved yet feel rejected," rejection continues to appear. For the world is not listening to your speech. It reflects your feeling. It mirrors the conviction you hold in the depths of your being. What you inwardly accept as true, whether it be joy or sorrow, abundance or lack, must be externalized in your world. This is why feeling is the secret. Feeling is the bridge between imagination and reality. It is the energy that sets creation in motion. Without it, imagination is only a picture, a dream untouched by life. With it, imagination becomes a living fact, pressing itself into expression. To cultivate feeling, you must quiet the mind and let the inner scene take hold of you, not as something distant, but as something already complete. Enter into the joy of possession. Rest in the relief of fulfillment. Feel the satisfaction as though the desire were behind you, accomplished and secured. But here lies the stumbling of the many. They wait for the world to give them the feeling. They say, "I will feel happy when I see the result." Yet the law demands the opposite. You must feel happy first, and then the result will come. To feel lack while imagining abundance is to contradict yourself. To feel loneliness while affirming love is to oppose your own prayer. The seed cannot grow in such divided soil. Feeling must match the desire. Feeling must agree with the assumption. Therefore, I tell you, begin with the end. If you desire wealth, feel the security of it now. If you desire health, feel the vitality now. If you desire love, feel the warmth of it now. Let the feeling saturate you until it seems natural, until it becomes easier to believe in its reality than to deny it. Persist in that feeling, and the outer world, though slow to catch up, must conform. This is not wishful thinking. This is the law of life. You are already clothed in the feelings you accept daily. Look at your world, and you will see the sum total of the feelings you have long carried. Change your feeling, and you change your world. It is not effort, but inner consent. It is not struggle, but surrender to the state desired. So take this to heart. Do not strive endlessly in words and images without feeling. Rest instead in the living reality of the wish fulfilled. Let the feeling of its accomplishment fill you, for that is the spark of creation. That is the power that shapes worlds. Feeling is the secret, and the one who masters it holds the key to every door in life. Doubt is the great thief of man's inheritance. It steals silently, not in a single moment, but in the steady, corrosive whisper that says, "It has not worked. It cannot be true." When a man begins to imagine his desire, he is filled with hope. For a brief season, he holds the image of the wish fulfilled. Yet soon the evidence of the senses rises against him, and he asks the fatal question, when will it happen? In that question lies the betrayal of his own imagination. For to ask when is to confess that it is not yet. And as long as he lives in the consciousness of not yet, he continues to postpone the fulfillment. The law cannot be mocked. It mirrors faithfully the state in which you abide. If you abide in the feeling that your desire is not here, that it belongs to some future moment, then that future moment will forever recede. You will chase it as a man chases the horizon, always approaching yet never arriving. The one who doubts has chained himself to waiting, and waiting never manifests. Only living in the end, only assuming the wish already fulfilled, produces the harvest. Consider how often you undo your own prayer. You imagine yourself wealthy, and for a moment you feel it. Then the next morning you wake and look at your bank account, and the feeling vanishes. You say it has not changed, and in that moment you deny the seed you planted. You declare to the law, "I do not believe it is mine," and the law, which only reflects your inner conviction, obeys. This is why doubt destroys manifestation. It uproots the seed before it has time to bear fruit. The senses are powerful witnesses, but they are not truthful ones. They testify only to what has been, not to what shall be. Yet men, trusting their senses above imagination, fall into despair when no outer sign appears. They forget that the outer world is but a delayed reflection of the inner. They demand evidence before they believe, not knowing that belief itself is the evidence of things not seen. Faith asks nothing of the senses. Faith rests in the unseen, knowing that what is held inwardly will one day take form. Doubt, however, is restless. It paces, it questions, it demands answers, and in doing so it declares separation from the desire. The doubter says, "I hope it comes," but hope alone is not enough. Hope looks forward, while faith lives now. To manifest, you must move from hoping to knowing, from wishing to assuming. This is the challenge that defeats the many. They begin in faith but end in doubt. They start with bold declarations but return to anxious questioning. They say, "I am," but then they ask, "When will I be?" And so their words and their feelings are at war. A house divided cannot stand. Imagination requires loyalty. You cannot serve both faith and doubt, for doubt cancels faith as surely as darkness cancels light. Therefore I say to you, guard your inner conversation. Refuse to rehearse the language of delay. Never ask when. Never ask how. Leave the mechanics to the law, for the law knows its own way. Your task is only to feel the end, to live in it, to rest as though it were already so. If you persist in this, the world will have no choice but to reflect your faith. Doubt is the denial of your own divinity. It is the refusal to believe that imagination creates reality. But the one who resists doubt, who silences the questions of the senses, who remains faithful in the unseen, shall see his desire unfold in the perfect hour. For the law never fails. It is man who fails by abandoning it. Remain steadfast, and your faith shall turn to sight. For what you dare to assume and persist in must become flesh. It is eternal law. Persistence is the golden key, the unwavering hand that holds the inner vision steady until the world conforms to it. Most men will imagine for a night or a week, some perhaps for a month, but when the outer world shows no sign of movement, they grow weary. They return to the evidence of the senses, and in doing so they abandon the unseen. Yet it is in the unseen that all things are born. To give up because the outer world has not yet shifted is like tearing up the seed because the tree has not yet appeared. The wise man knows that time is only the interval between sowing and reaping, and he rests in confidence that the harvest is certain. The unseen is not a void, nor is it a dream without substance. It is the eternal reality from which all appearances spring. What you imagine with feeling lives already in that invisible realm. To persist is to remain faithful to that invisible fact, no matter what the senses may declare. If you turn back to appearances, if you let reason persuade you that nothing has changed, you betray your own creation. You abandon the promise for the shadow. Consider the man who desires healing. He enters his imagination, and for a moment he feels whole, vibrant, and strong. But when he wakes in the morning and feels the pain in his body, he despairs and says, "It has not worked." What has he done? He has allowed the senses to dictate truth rather than the imagination. He has abandoned persistence, and so his healing delays. Yet, if he had remained faithful, if he had continued to feel himself whole in spite of the evidence, he would have seen the outer body conform to the inner state. For the body is but the servant of the mind, and imagination its master. Persistence does not mean strain. It does not mean endless effort or desperate repetition. It means dwelling in the end naturally, resting in the assurance that it already is so. It is not the passantile, the anxious holding of an image, but the quiet knowing that the unseen is real. Just as a pregnant woman does not question daily if the child is forming, but lives in confidence of the unseen process, so you must live in confidence of the state you have assumed. This is the dividing line between those who succeed and those who fail. The unsuccessful demand quick results. They plant the seed and then dig it up to see if it has sprouted. They confess faith one moment and doubt the next. Their inner state shifts like the wind, and so the outer world remains unstable. But the successful one holds steady. He may see no change for weeks, perhaps months, but he does not waver. He continues to feel himself already in possession of the desire, and in due season the harvest appears. Scripture declares, "He that endureth to the end shall be saved." To endure is to persist, to remain unmoved by appearances until the end assumed inwardly becomes the end experienced outwardly. The senses will resist. They will cry out, "It is not here." But persistence answers, "It is already done." The world will contradict you, but persistence does not argue. It simply abides. And in time the world grows weary of resisting and bends to the assumption. So I tell you, make persistence your constant companion. Do not abandon the unseen when the seen mocks you. Do not forsake the inner reality because the outer delays. The delay is not denial, it is only the unfolding of the invisible into visibility. Hold fast, remain faithful, and the day will come when what was once unseen stands before you in undeniable form. For imagination creates reality, and persistence in the unseen is the proof of faith. The world may falter, but the law cannot fail. To dwell in the end is to live entirely in the state of your desire fulfilled. Yet most men fail because they do not understand this. They imagine for a moment, perhaps even for a day, and then return to the familiar realities of their outer life. They walk among the world as if nothing has changed, speaking words of faith but moving in contradiction to them. They do not live in the end, they merely hope for it. And hope, while pleasant, is powerless when it is not accompanied by the feeling of possession. The law is simple. What you dwell in, that you become. If you live in the end, the outer world must adjust to the inner state. But if you vacillate, looking backward at the present and forward to a future you have not yet entered, you scatter your forces and delay the manifestation. The world conforms to your inner state, not to your wishes, not to your desires, but to the reality you assume as true. The one who dwells in the end lives in that reality now. He is already wealthy, already loved, already free. The outer world, in time, must reflect what he has inwardly appropriated. Consider the man who desires love. He imagines holding the beloved in his arms and smiles at the feeling of being cherished. Yet when he steps into the streets, he feels lonely, he doubts, he worries. He does not dwell in the end. His inner state contradicts the assumption. The beloved may be near, yet the distance between imagination and feeling holds the manifestation at bay. To dwell in the end is to feel the embrace, to know the heart of another as if it were your own. Until that feeling saturates you, the outer world will offer only echoes of longing, never the fulfillment itself. Few succeed because they fail to enter fully into the life of the wish fulfilled. They play at imagination but do not surrender to it. They speak affirmations but do not feel them. They imagine briefly and then attend to the world as it is. The outer reality is persuasive, and the mind, untrained, conforms easily to what the senses dictate. To dwell in the end requires discipline. It requires persistence. It requires the courage to live in a state that contradicts all evidence. The secret is to assume the feeling of the wish fulfilled as natural, to breathe it, to walk in it, to allow it to color every thought and action. Let it saturate your mind and heart until it becomes your only reality. Do not glance back to lack or forward to hope. Remain firmly planted in the end. Make the inner world so vivid, so real that the outer world cannot help but yield. The world is not hostile. It is only reflective. It mirrors what you hold most consistently. Hold the end, and the world must conform. Many fail because they mistake imagination for fantasy. They fear it is unreal, and so they hedge their inner life with doubts. But imagination is the divine faculty through which creation occurs. To live in the end is to act as co-creator with God Himself. The outer forms will follow as surely as night follows day. The question is only whether you will persist in the unseen until the end appears. So I tell you, make dwelling in the end your practice. Let the inner reality of the wish fulfilled dominate your consciousness. Speak as though it is done. Feel as though it is done. Live as though it is done. Do not allow the outer world to dictate your state. Be faithful to the unseen, and the world will bend in obedience. Few succeed because few enter fully into this law, but the one who does shall see all things obey. Imagination, once assumed and fully felt, cannot fail, and so we arrive at the end, yet this is only the beginning. You now know why 99 fail and the few succeed. They abandon the unseen, they doubt, they ignore the power of feeling, they waver in impatience, and they fail to dwell in the end. But you, having heard this, hold the key. You have the power to change your world, not by struggling against it, but by mastering the law within. Persist in the unseen. Trust the imagination that God has placed within you. Feel the desire fulfilled, and let that feeling saturate every fiber of your being. Doubt nothing. Question nothing. The world outside is only a mirror, reflecting faithfully the state you maintain within. Live as though your wish is already done, and the outer world will bend in obedience to your inner reality. Remember, the law is certain. Imagination creates reality. Feeling gives it life. Persistence brings it forth. And to dwell in the end is to claim it as your own. All that is required is your faith, your courage, and your unwavering conviction. Let nothing shake you. Let nothing move you from the inner state you have chosen. Now take this knowledge and act upon it. Imagine boldly, feel deeply, persist patiently, dwell completely. The world will conform, for it cannot resist the law of God within you. You are the creator of your own life, and what you dare to assume and persist in must, without fail, become your reality. The power has always been yours. The secret has always been within. Claim it, live it, become it, and watch as the impossible unfolds before your eyes.